Yeah, absolutely. Now,
Is that Bryony?
believe it or not, these are some naughty little minxes.
Are you coming over?
Are you going to come and say hi?
So we're talking about that was the creative. Here we
So
go.
introduce yourself.
Right.
My name's Bryony Kimmings and I'm a performance artist.
I'm not one of the actors in the
She's
show.
my sister. She's a
You're with the Breaker Leggers.
And we are in the Midlands in Coventry at the Belgrade Theatre.
To see the musical, A Pacifist's Guide to the War on Cancer.
So stay tuned to find out how many legs
Whether it's break a leg
or leg it.
We love receiving comments from you, and to make sure that you always know exactly what's going on in Theatreland, hit subscribe now and you'll be the first to find out when we post a new review.
Yes, and when we do, please leave your comments below about any shows that are coming up, anything to do with this show, anything you're excited about. We want to hear from you, leggers, too.
Yes, exactly.
So, was it Pacifist's Guide to War on Cancer?
Yes, it's a new musical. It actually had its premiere at the National Theatre for a very limited run, and it's now headed out on tour in a production that's by Complicité, who were the original production. It was originally staged by the National, a co-production, but this is co-production by Bryony Kimmings, who also wrote the piece in conjunction with Brian LaBelle and Kirsty Housley, and she's also a performer and director in the piece as well.
So quite accomplished. I understand she can be quite edgy. She writes about some edgy stuff.
Yeah, topics that you wouldn't normally explore in a kind of light-hearted way, such as things as sexual dysfunction and the kind of hype of celebrity and positive role models. She's a bit edgy, I think, and I'm quite looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it was originally performed in the Dorfman space at the National. This space that we're going into is also very Dorfman-esque, almost quite studio-like.
Dynamic.
Yeah, so you're right on top of the action, so I too am looking forward to this.
Yep, it's 2 acts, and we'll let you know what we think in the interval.
We're back, and there is no interval.
Yeah, so unfortunately misinformed there, and we'll get on to the whys of that shortly, but yeah, no interval, so we've come to the
Straight
end
through.
of the show.
We're at the end. So, hey, A Pacifist's Guide to the War on Cancer. I think I've got that right.
Yeah.
What did you make of that?
Do you know what? I thought it was absolutely vital and unlike anything I've ever seen before. To make a comparison to this show is really difficult. It stands on its own as part musical, part observation, part group therapy session, and I don't know any other shows that actually cross those sorts of boundaries. What did you think?
Yeah, it is. It's almost a very unique piece of theatre entirely on its own. I guess we're generally talking at this moment about how I enjoyed it. I did enjoy the piece, although almost enjoying the piece sounds a bit wrong considering its subject matter, but it's very educational, it's very involving. It is a very interesting piece of theatre that moves very well. It starts off as an observational piece, but then you get dragged into more personal stories, and by the end of it, it is therapy session, and even though I'm just observing the lights going off around us, it's very late here, it's a very moving piece of theatre.
Yes.
I'll go with that for the time being before we deconstruct it a bit further.
Yeah, I think this is a great point to say as well, that whilst this show has had other productions, the production that is currently on tour that we have seen here at the Belgrade tonight is entirely different, by all accounts, to the version that was on at the National Theatre. This has a cast of only 6 people. It's 1 act as opposed to 2 acts, so hence the confusion. And also, it tells a slightly different story from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, so Bryony, who wrote it originally, she directed it, and she wanted to tell a story about people's experiences going through cancer. However, while she was directing that piece at the National, things were going on in her life that then she wanted to incorporate into this production, So now in this production, she is in this production. She talks about her own personal experience with a family member of hers. Also in this production, we have someone that she came into contact with while researching the piece, who is also a cancer sufferer, but was
No,
also
not suffer.
how would you say it?
She's someone that has cancer.
She's had
Yeah, that's
cancer.
living with cancer.
Before she was born, she had cancer, and she has been struggling with cancer throughout. And when Bryony was researching this, they got very friendly, and then she got ill again, and it tells that story, and she's also on stage. So it's incredibly personal. It's a personal testimony and account from the people who lived this direct, exact story, and can only be told at this time with this cast.
Yeah, at that, the person involved, the performer, is Lara Veach, who suffers with a syndrome called LFS, and LFS is a kind of predetermination genetically to acquiring cancer, and she has fought, for want of a better word, that disease 6 times in her life now.
Yeah.
She is on that stage bearing her heart and soul and telling her story, which has completely shaped, or should I say reshaped, this piece of theatre. The only way I can describe her moments and the stories of people that have been touched or been affected directly by cancer is it's to cancer what the vagina monologues is to vaginas. They are telling their story, they're telling you how they've dealt with that situation, and do you know what? It's utterly compelling, totally moving, and totally and utterly unique and important. I think it was an important piece of theatre.
Yeah, it deals with, it's kind of the big elephant in the room. I know I've been in that situation around people who are undergoing treatment, and you just don't know what to say. And it kind of tells the story from, I guess Bryony set out to kind of find out a guide of how do you deal with those situations. And in trying to do so, I guess the discovery is there is no rule book. We don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that just being honest and dealing with things is the best thing to do. And I think that's what's nice. It's almost like making it a topic, giving it song, giving it voice, giving it situations and dilemma and set music. It makes us address the issue, which is so important, as cancer is such a massive part of everybody's lives.
Yeah.
There's so many people who know someone who has either been affected or has suffered from it. It just affects everybody.
It really does, and they're saying increasingly so. Cancer rates have gone from 1 in 3 to 1 in 2, so 50% of the population at some point will be diagnosed with a cancer, which, this is a growing topic that has been explored in this piece really creatively. The songs are really interesting, and they speak about certain points of cancer, whether it be a diagnosis of cancer or how other people are treating you, handling things with kid gloves, and actually what you would want as a cancer, patient, and how you would want to be treated, all through the medium of song, which we got lucky enough to have a bit of a Q&A session with the cast and creatives following the show. And that's the main resonating point, is cancer isn't about how you should have expect to be treated. It's about there is no right or wrong. There is no actual answer to what should I do in this situation. It's all a very personal and unique experience, and so it should be. Don't feel guilty about how you deal with it. The way they've decided to deal with it, or Bryony has decided to deal with it, is by the medium of song in a theatrical piece, which is just as valid as someone that decides to shy away from it, or someone that decides to go on a bit of a crusade and campaign for it. It's all got merit.
Yeah, and now we could talk about the kind of themes of the piece and why it's important for a long time. However, we were here to see the show, so let's talk a little bit more about the show and putting it on. It's really nicely put together. Bryony almost narrates it, so it's a very personal account. It's almost Her style is so relaxed to start with. It's almost quite conversational. She very quickly strikes up a very close kinship with the audience, nice relationship with the audience. She's kind of observing what is happening, which is just quite nice and playful to start with.
It is. And then, it goes on this sort of, what am I doing? It's her story about getting the show off the ground, meeting with Complicité to actually formulate what,
it's quite autobiographical on stage. So you're kind of following, okay, so I thought I'd better write a musical, or what could I write about, some different ideas. So you're kind of following her journey.
Yeah, and then you then meet people that have cancer, have been touched by cancer, and follow the research that Bryony has undertaken in order to understand the topic.
Which is really educational.
Yeah,
which is why I love theatre. I did feel as if I was learning stuff. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Okay, that's an interesting angle. Got me thinking.
Then about two-thirds of the way through the show, it turns.
Yeah, suddenly you get dragged in, and it no longer becomes an observation piece. It is a piece of theatre. There's a fantastic piece of soundscape.
Yeah, sound design by Lewis Gibson.
Lovely, rich, bassy sound. I think it felt like at least 5 minutes worth of sound, which just accompanied what was going on the stage fantastically. So
very
big thumbs
engaging.
up.
Well
done. Really interesting. Some really interesting creative concepts coming up in terms of being in a hospital and being delivered news. Don't want to go into any more. I don't want to give any spoilers, but some really nice creative ideas.
Yeah, and also a lot of that comes from the cast who are creating a lot of the sounds in that moment.
Yes.
Using instruments and of a non-typical nature, but that was greatly done, and it goes to show such a range of skills from the talented cast. They sing in this, they dance, but they also create music.
They play instruments. They're there with the bass, the keyboard. They're all picking up bits and bobs. There must be a soundtrack as well that they're going to, it seems, as there's slight elements that are being amplified or played from a track, but otherwise a lot of it is played there and then on stage.
I also really like the choreography, actually. I thought the choreography was really fun.
There's quite a lot of it as well, considering there was only 3 of them really dancing and singing.
Yeah, some lovely dancing and lovely, simple but effective choreography, especially when you've got such a small cast. Version 1.0 had 18 cast members. This has just 6, yet they filled the stage. They made the most of the space.
Yeah, and then come the end, it's really reflective. The whole stage opens up. The set is very hidden and just very reflective. And then they break the 4th wall and they invite it open to the audience, which is just, speaking to Bryony, she was saying that was the first thing that she came up with, which I thought was really interesting. And that's almost I don't want to bring it down or kind of trivialize it and saying it turns into a counselling session, because I think it's all very valid and essential to the piece. It's just, I think anyone who has encountered loss or illness will feel something there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
believe
it or not, these are some naughty little minxes.
Are you coming over?
Are you going to come and say hi?
So we were talking about that was the creative. Here we go.
So introduce yourself.
Right.
Hi, my name's Bryony Kimmings, and I'm a performance artist.
I'm not I'm one of the actors in the
She's
show.
my sister. She's a
They're ever so well behaved.
They are.
Role models to all. And they're a lot of fun. Anything else you want to say about those? Let's take about. Are there any downsides to this production that you saw this evening?
I don't know if downsides is the right terminology to
Downsides?
use.
Anything you didn't like?
And again, nothing that I didn't like. I mean, the balance at this venue, at some points I struggled with the sound balance between the vocals and the music, but that's probably a venue-specific, problem. As someone that's never experienced cancer firsthand, I'd imagine this piece resonates maybe slightly more with someone that has been touched by it. That's not to say I didn't get a huge amount of value from it, it's just to say that maybe I would have felt it even more had I have experienced, and thankfully I haven't. But it's equipped me with, I feel a better understanding of those that have, and also how to engage with those people that have, which is only a positive thing.
So kind of a positive from negative, although you don't
Yeah.
have personal experience, it's kind of equipped you. I'd say the only negative I could put on, probably more venue specific, was the sound balance during the singing. I say that because the actual sound design for when they had the sound design moments was fantastic. So I imagine then that it was just this venue. I was struggling to pick up the
vocal.
nuances of the vocal within the songs,
Yeah.
which is a real shame, but everything else was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about time that we gave our legs for A Pacifist's Guide to the War on Cancer.
So for this piece, we are going to give four legs. Yeah.
Do you know what? Like I say, it's a vital piece of theatre.
Important.
It's one of those shows that you kind of owe it to yourself to see. You owe it to yourself, your sense of kind of understanding of the world and the issues that go on in people's lives, and to gain a greater understanding of those things. I think you would come away from this feeling inspired, definitely, by some of the stories in this. I feel it utterly, like, don't take anything for granted. There are people out there with struggles worse than you, but I feel it was a privilege to see that, and it was enlightening and so engaging.
Yeah, I think the same. I think the key thing is that it's okay, and also no one is immune, and it can happen to anyone. And I think that's the thing. It's very close. We may feel at times, or
Invincible.
everyone as human beings, until something happens, we feel invincible.
Yeah.
Until we have a family member that's sick, or until we become sick ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a constant refresher, almost to live each day, value each day,
And
each
I think
moment, because we don't know when things are going to change.
It's driven home even more by the fact that you've got those people in the room with you. I mean, I could watch a film on this same topic and I probably would
Feel a bit detached.
I would feel detached,
Yeah.
but I feel it's been brought right into my heart, and
Yeah.
such an important piece of theatre.
Well, this piece is now going out on tour to Australia.
Yes.
And who knows what happens next?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I imagine this is the sort of piece of theatre that could undergo another incarnation. I think that as Bryony's story evolves and
Yeah.
develops, and the things that she's going through, she could get inspiration off the back of this to make Pacifist's Guide 3.0, not just 2.0. I mean, in the kind of way, I kind of hope she doesn't.
Well,
I don't want her to undergo any more trauma.
Bryony seems to be the kind of person who finds inspiration from everywhere.
Yes.
So I look forward to see what she brings next, and I, for one, would be very interested to know what topics she writes about and explores next.
Yeah, me too. That's just what we thought. Have you seen the show, maybe in its first time round or even in this tour? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, please let us know. Leave your comments below.
We're the Breaker Leggers, and we'll catch you again soon.
Bye.